Good afternoon. The time is 1:11 and 22 seconds. 4-T, the sanctuary, pursuit of the golden truth. Sitting before you is a solar, white, wizard, and channeling many ancestors, but also the solar, jaguar, emperor. Now it's the 7th of August 2026. Beautiful day outside, and my unconditional love flows out to each and every one of you. And we're talking about how bad and evil the government is. And it's not all, it's some within our government and other departments and corporations and so forth, which we are hunting down and eliminating. And I am illuminating the path of righteousness for everyone to jump on board. Never too late, because we're in life, death, rebirth, transformation, reformation, restoration. And it's a great mass awakening. Unstoppable, inevitable, irreversible, unavoidable. And awake, rise and shine. Abracadabra. Let's just do one angel oracle card to see how we go. We'll go right from the centre here. Before I start reading my address to the nation. Okay, we got family harmony. And also we'll draw out one tarot card, so family harmony. It's all about harmonising with everything and being in peace and harmony with yourself. And centre, balance and ground yourselves. And I know you've got plenty of courage and strength out there to see with your own eyes exactly what's going on now. And you cope with it. You cope and deal with it to the best of your abilities with your capabilities. If you've been tuning in here with your tuning fork and it's fully tuned now, and listening, instructions, directions, and by my command, laughing. And that's through my family history, testimonial that attests to what everything I am saying, the mastery of everything. 11-22-33, and the triangle of enlightenment. And the Royal Star Antares, revealing that has been concealed. Page of Wands. Go out and spread the word, because the word is the word. Ideas, discovery, limitless potential, exploration, excitement. So we got Jupiter, exploration, expanding, Mars, action, art of war, and you know the Pluto, as I said, life, death, rebirth, transformation, reformation, restoration, because we're in that transitional, transmutational, transformational stage phase level. Here we go. Which came to me on the 7th, Friday. And we have all about your civic integrity. Integrity. I am that I am. And I am throwing down the gauntlet. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today to throw down the gauntlet to the bad political elite establishment. For over a century, true Australian leadership was built on transparent duties. From the foundational days of our pioneers, straight down to my great-great-grandfather, Charles Francis Juchau, the historic first mayor of Murrurundi in 1890. Today, that legacy is being systematically crushed by an institutional rot of branch stacking, pork barrelling, and corporate donations of influence. They have mishandled our borders, abandoned our skilled workers and recklessly weaponised the census forms to divide us for votes. But history proves that the walls of administrative secrecy always crack under the relentless demand for accountability and the golden truth. With the Federal National Anti-Corruption Commission now enforcing a tide of active investigations, no official tier is immune to scrutiny. The facts will inevitably find their way into the golden light, and those who have compromised our sovereignty will be held to account under the full weight of public truth. Now, my formal address on civic integrity, institutional accountability, and cultural sovereignty. Super anus. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time today as a descendant of early colonial pioneers, and with my own family's roots deeply embedded in Australian civic history, through my great-grandfather, Charles Francis Juchau, who stood as the historic first mayor of Murrurundi in 1890. I know that genuine local leadership must be built on transparent duty and unwavering accountability to the people, well, the citizens, populace, people that you serve. We gather at a moment when the structural foundation of Australian public life is facing a profound crisis of confidence. For generations, the relationship between the elected government and the citizenry has relied on a basic unwritten contract that those who hold power will exercise it with total transparency, absolute honesty, and an unwavering commitment to the rule of law. Yet, when we look at the systemic failures within our national landscape, where detailed briefings on criminal infiltration within our powerful institutions are shelved for decades, and where pre-election policy promises are quietly discarded under the guise of bureaucratic necessity. We see a dangerous erosion of that fundamental trust. True leadership does not wait for investigative journalists to expose deep-seated corruption before taking corrective action. True integrity means actively investigating warnings, refusing financial contributions from compromised entities, and facing the public with unvarnished facts rather than polished damage control and controlling the narrative with falsehood. This betrayal of the public trust extends directly into how subsequent federal administrations have mismanaged our national identity and borders. We have completely lost sight of the historical standard set by the post-war generation, where the resilient migrants who arrived on our shores were explicitly chosen for their direct, tangible skills, working with their hands and engineering excellence to physically construct foundational icons like the Snowy Mountains Hydro Scheme and the Warragamba Dam and many others structures, vital to our living humanity. Instead, modern administrations have treated immigration as a short-sighted political numbers game, recklessly mishandling the census form to divide the public for votes. To understand how this has been allowed to happen over the last few decades, we must look at how the fundamental structure of our national records have been systematically altered. The exact order of the religion question on the 91 census form was Catholic was number 1, Anglican was number 2, Uniting Church 3, Presbyterian 4, Greek Orthodox, Baptist and Lutheran, and then others were, well, you tick the other and then you open up the text box and physically write it in. And then there was also no religion. Compare that historical baseline to the 2026 order, where no religion has been pushed to the absolute top of the box now. So no religion was at the bottom, and now it's at the top, because those donkey votes when you're at the top. Followed by a reshuffled list: no religion, Catholic, Anglican, Islam, Hinduism, Uniting Church, Buddhism, Presbyterian, Greek Orthodox, and Baptist, by fragmenting the traditional Christian majority into separate denominations like Catholic, Anglican, and Presbyterian, while grouping Islam under a single unified umbrella. They visually distort our culture data. They intentionally separate, on purpose, Christians to dilute their collective presence on paper, making the traditional foundation look smaller, while keeping other global faiths undivided to track concentrated voting blocks in key metropolitan electorates. They do this despite the fact that Islam also has different Muslim faiths, internal divisions, and distinct dominions like Sunni and Shia that are completely glossed over by a single checkbox on the paper form. The structural manipulation creates a false mandate for stripping historical values from our public institutions. Worse still, this ongoing dilution of our traditional identity runs parallel to a darker reality. The deeply entrenched criminal elements and their covert connections to modern politics. Over the last decades, we have seen major political parties turn a blind eye to gangland infiltration, elicited influence within powerful networks, effectively trading national integrity for systemic control and financial backing. When political operations become dependent on protecting these internal alliances, the oversight bodies fail. The borders open and the data is engineered to suit a specific agenda. This internal rot is driven directly by systemic manipulation within the major party machineries, where the practice of branch stacking has been used to hijack local democratic processes, replacing genuine community voices with manufactured internal factions designed to protect entrenched power. Once in power, these factions rely on pork barrelling, weaponising public money and taxpayer-funded grants to buy votes in targeted marginal seats, rather than allocating resources based on genuine regional need and infrastructure deficits. This entire system is sustained by an army of corporate and political lobbyists who roam the corridors of Parliament, holding unhindered access to decision makers and using corporate donations of influence to buy access, dictate policy, and compromise the sovereignty of our laws. This historical trajectory of treachery and betrayal spans decades, anchored in the deliberate dismantling of Australia's economic independence. It traces back to international accords like the Lima Agreement, which effectively destroyed our primary industries. Got to build it all up again. Manufacturing, production and factories, transferring our industrial self-reliance offshore, while successive governments sold off our critical public assets, an immoral act that stripped away the nation's wealth. This economic surrender is actively mirrored today in the enforcement of the modern net zero scam scheme, a highly subsidised regulatory framework that serves to systematically weaken local energy grids and crush independent agricultural production. To shield this ongoing exploitation from criticism, political architectures historically trace back to figures like Al Grasby, Grassby, good old Al, whose documented ties to mafia operations in regional hubs expose the depth of institutional compromise, were engineered to create artificial barriers of racism and discrimination, weaponising identity politics to silence, divide and control their very own citizens whenever they question the state. The expectation of a period marked by deep reflection, confession and institutional accountability reflects a desire for systemic purification and ethical renewal. In both historical cycles and theological traditions, eras of hidden misconduct are often followed by moments of public disclosure and reckoning. Australian Royal Commission serves as the ultimate legal mechanism for dismantling institutional secrecy across religious, corporate, bureaucratic and political spheres, SPHERES, by utilising cohesive, stationary powers to seize internal archives and force high-ranking leaders to testify under oath. These landmark inquiries, such as the child sexual abuse, banking, robo-debt, the Fitzgerald investigations, systematically exposed systemic transgressions ranging from predatory corporate greed and unlawful automated state governance to entrenched police corruption and institutional cover-ups. The resulting massive public exposure consistently shatters long-standing legal protections and executive privileges, ultimately triggering a profound cycle of societal atonement that includes historic national apologies, billions of dollars in consumer compensation, the criminal prosecution of senior officials, and the creation of permanent, independent anti-corruption watchdogs. The tide of accountability is rising further through our federal enforcement mechanisms. The National Anti-Corruption Commission, NACC, latest data and operational updates signify a critical milestone in strengthening Commonwealth integrity by demonstrating that the agency has successfully transitioned from foundational setup to active, impactful enforcement by managing 32 independent investigations, securing 11 criminal convictions, and actively prosecuting massive 71 million fraud and border collusion cases in court. The NACC proves it has the teeth and claws and capability to dismantle deep-seated public sector corruption. Furthermore, it has published findings across vital agencies like the AFP, ABF, and the Department of Home Affairs expose a troubling breadth of systemic vulnerabilities, ranging from sensitive data leaks to executive level cronyism, proving that no official tier is immune to scrutiny. Ultimately, these tangible outcomes serve as a powerful deterrent, validating the federal anti-corruption framework and rebuilding public trust by showing that institutional misconduct will be aggressively uncovered and penalised. My definitive choice for justice is within Deputy Commissioner Dr. Ben Gauntlet as the author for my public trust, because he represents a rare intersection of unyielding personal resilience and elite constitutional mastery. He was left a quadriplegic at age 16. He refused adversity to become a Rhodes Scholar, a Doctor of Law from Oxford and a seasoned barrister who operates entirely outside the web of career political insiders. He is a formidable, independent weapon who understands systemic discrimination firsthand, and his protected 5-year term gives him the absolute statutory power to look past polished political rhetoric and zero in strictly on unvarnished, evidentiary facts. Facts, golden truth. I place my trust not in a capricious political system, but in the man of proven grit who answers only to the rule of law. When I say I'm throwing down the gauntlet to this establishment, I literally mean it. History shows us that the great nations are not brought down by external forces, but by internal decay when those in high office look the other way. We must demand an end to the culture of administrative secrecy, the shielding of data behind cabinet privileges, and the casual dismissal of accountability. The public interest must always remain sovereign. Complete exposure usually triggers institutional action, such as parliamentary inquiries, royal commissions, or official investigations that force public entities to alter their operational procedures. These points now need to be published in independent media outlets, broadcast on national news, or widely shared across public digital platforms where the broader community can engage with the material. I close this address today by anchoring my words in the unalterable truth of my own name and blood. The very name Juchau carries its ancient meaning from the bench. It means judge. I stand before you with a biological DNA of authenticity, verified through deep ancestral roots that map an unbroken line across the globe, stretching from the early Penal foundations of modern Australia, back through the artisan corridors of England and into the noble halls of Brittany, and descending directly from the ancient Celtics of the historic Bell Beaker culture. My ancestry is not a collection of abstract dates, but a living, chemical record of law and sovereignty. No matter how deep systemic deception is buried, a dedicated community standing firm in demand for accountability ensures that the facts will inevitably find their way into the light, the golden truth. Thank you for your time. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Take care, stay safe out there. You've tuned in the 4-T, the sanctuary, pursuit of the golden truth. And we bid you farewell. Blessings to one and all. Bye for now.